Okay, I'm still talking about chasing time travelers. This is a summary of the Drosnin stuff. So starting on the left, Drosnin was a journalist who became interested in the Torah code, also called the Bible code, and he asked Eliyahu Rips, a mathematician who was involved in the original research about the Torah code. He asked him questions and learned things, and he wrote some books. And so Drosnin wrote some books. One of the things that Rips told Drosnin was that the uh, the 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 Torah matrix is incomplete in terms of what it's supposed to do, meaning it's supposed to be larger. And when Drosnin asked him how to enlarge it, Rips told him he needed a code key. And when Drosnin said, "What's the key?" Rips said he didn't know. So then Drosnin sat down at his computer and he used the software to ask itself what the code key was. And it gave him several dozen cues. So now we're in the middle box there, right? And so Drosnin followed those cues. Now we're at the top box in the middle to the Middle East. Um, two obelisks, two tablets of stone, multiple languages, right near the surface of the ground, in a valley of limestone where there's a tongue, um, on a farm, in a mound that had become an archaeological site. He didn't find any of that stuff. So back to the middle thing, right? The middle box. I followed those keys. I'm oversimplifying this, but this is basically what happened. I followed those cues to a museum in Davenport, Iowa, because I had read about the Davenport tablets years prior. And bottom line, everything that Drosnin said was consistent. Everything that the Torah code told Drosnin was consistent with the Iowa tablets. And it wasn't like, things that you hear about every day. For instance, there are no obelisks mentioned in the five books of Moses, which is what the Torah is. And but Drosnin found it listed twice, presumably meaning that there were two obelisks. He was right, in my opinion, and two tablets of stone and all this. So and there were so bottom line, I think there's a time anomaly with the Iowa tablets, the Davenport tablets, because they seem to have predicted 9/11. They show a guy attacking by air. He's about to be killed. They show Twin Towers laying on the ground on September 11th, the first day of the season of Aket, and which I mentioned a few videos back. And Drosnin found the same thing. The Torah code told him that the code key would be delivered by a time traveler with a time machine, and I concluded that the code key was the Hebrew letter Resh, and and Drosnin never found the code key. At least he didn't say he did. And in other words, I used his research to find the code, what I think is the code key. And what I think is really interesting is that I'm not the one who did that original research. In other words, I think my research would be suspect if I were to say, "Oh yeah, I sat down at the Torah with the Bible code software, and I typed in these search terms, and it described the Davenport tablets, and so here's the code key." But that's not what happened. I wrote a book. I wrote and published a book about the Torah code, about the Davenport tablets in, well, actually, I don't know that that's relevant. Um, my point is, Drosnin apparently didn't know about the Davenport tablets because he didn't say one thing about them. And I read all three of his books, and I read as many articles as I could find about him, what he said, and he didn't talk about them. So there's this funny time anomaly with the Davenport tablets, and and there's this time travel thing in terms of what Drosnin learned from the software. So I think that's more than coincidental. So who's the time traveler? Because I've been chasing this time traveler, right? Well, the Davenport tablets were carved by an astrologer named Winty. Um, his name in English is Star Watcher. In ancient Libyan, Egyptian, or something, his name was Winty, and it's Star Watcher in English. And so, yeah, maybe Winty's the time traveler. I don't know, but there's something funny going on in terms of time travel. All right, thanks. So I never did explain about the Akashic records. There's an idea out there that the secrets of the universe and the history of Earth and the history of other planets are all encoded or something in these mysterious records. Some people believe that the Akashic it's apparently comes from ancient Hinduism, where the Akash is the sky, and the idea is that the stories of Earth and other planets are all in there, um, like radio waves or something. And there's another theory. No one really knows, right? These are just people sort of guessing. And there's another one that the Akashic Records is literally documents carved on emerald tablets underneath the Sphinx and stuff like that. And people are looking for those, or they're in some cave, like the Well of Souls or something like that, right down in the Middle East. And there's a man named Drunvalo Melchizedek, and I believe his theory. He's a New Age person. I believe his theory is that the Torah code is the Akashic records. I don't think he mentioned anything about the complete Torah code or not, but so yeah, my theory is that if if the completed Torah code is a real thing, I think that, in my opinion, that would be the Akashic records. The thing that makes me think that the Torah code is not baloney, like so many people say it is because of the Davenport tablets. That just seems to me like too many coincidences that Drosnin would ask the Torah code for the key, and it would tell him all these things that line up with the Davenport tablets that we know are real, and that there are time anomalies associated with the story of the Davenport tablets. Um, when they were found in 1877, um, the Smithsonian said they were fake, but if you read the accounts of that story, like for instance by the Iowa State archaeologist, he said, well, it was in one of his books, like so many years later. He said, well, one weird thing is that Judge Bollinger, who said he wrote that he carved those tablets, when you do the math, he would have been 9 years old, right? And so it would mean that a 9-year-old boy was at a brothel in the middle late at night with his buddies or something, and decided to climb on a roof and and uh, and get some shingles down. I'll call them shingles, and carve these symbols that no one on earth knew about, because according to Barry Fell, the Harvard professor, one of the things wrong with Judge Bollinger's story is that he said he got the symbols for the Davenport tablets from an Encyclopedia Britannica, at a certain year, but that encyclopedia didn't have those symbols because no one on earth had those symbols. That research hadn't been done yet. So it's like, well, how did this 9-year-old boy just happen to, you know, imagine symbols that turned out to be real, right? And and put them on these tablets, and on the on page two, so to speak, of those tablets, to a pillar, attach a mirror, so that when the sun rises on the first day of the spring equinox, it'll illuminate a stone called the Watcher, and on that day you should hold your New Year celebration. How can a 9-year-old kid do that when no one had that information, right? So that's one of those time anomalies. Um, so what do you do with the Akashic records? Well, if the Akashic records are real, then they tell you whatever you want to know. But I think you have to have some sort of insight. I'm not really, because I've never actually used the Torah code, right? I'm kind of afraid to use it, but so I've just based my research on Drosnin's research. But but I think the idea is that if you want some insight into, I don't know, anything, what's going on, what's going to happen tomorrow with the Dow Jones or whatever, I think it's supposed to be in there. And what the reason the Torah code fell out of favor is because, no offense to evangelicals, but when they heard about the Torah code, they said, "Oh well, in that case, since the New Testament is better, then the New Testament must have an even better code than the Torah code." And then they tried some stuff, and it just fell apart. And so everybody just sort of poo-pooed the Torah code. And archaeologists, I'm sorry, I guess linguists said, "Well, any large enough document's going to do the same thing as the Torah code." And my thought is, I don't think so, because I don't think you can expand any document. They say Moby Dick has the same information. I'm thinking, okay, tell us how to expand Moby Dick. So do you translate it into Hebrew and then do it? So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to part 26 of Chasing Time Travelers.